So you want to learn some secrets to Tyreek Hill's speed and explosiveness? Well, listen up. Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Jason Kelly, creator of The Bounce Body. Hope everybody's having a great day today. Today, I'm going to show you a few things that can help you develop the speed and explosiveness of Tyreek Hill. But before I begin, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you can receive future notifications based on more training methods, fitness, strength, speed, power. All right, so there's two things I would like to discuss about how you can develop Tyreek Hill's speed and explosiveness. The first way is by doing slow, eccentric, isometric pauses. So what does that mean? It means that when you squat, that you want to do a slow eccentric for about 6 seconds to 8 seconds, pause at the bottom of your squat for about 2 seconds, and then come up as fast as you can. You can do this with squats for both legs or on single leg. And it's nice to do it on single leg because when you are sprinting or cutting with agility on the field, on the court, or whatever it is that you may be doing, is that you're cutting off a single leg. And so what you have to remember about single leg training and strength development is that your both legs need to try to be equally strong as possible. One will always be slightly stronger than the other because of the domination of your hand and your leg, but you have to try to make them as strong as you can. And so what does that mean? That means basically like if we slow things down and you're sprinting and your right leg hits the floor and it hits it in 5th gear and then your left foot hits the floor, it's like downshifting in 3rd or 4th gear because it doesn't have it can't absorb force, it can't produce the strength, speed, and explosiveness it needs like the right leg. So it's almost like you're downshifting, upshifting, downshifting, upshifting. And so you have to understand that about when you're doing squats and single leg squats. I like to do single leg squats because it really has helped my sprinting ability as well as cutting and agility. And you'll hear a lot of sprint coaches say, oh, you can't do strength training, you shouldn't do strength training because it'll make you slow. Well, if you continue to strength train like 3 or 4 times a week, it will make you slow. You've got to learn how to strength train once a week and be progressive with it, and then the rest of your week working on explosiveness, speed, and power. You have to learn how to transition and integrate it into your routine, into your training, and not just think, well, I'll just keep lifting weights. Yeah, that doesn't work. You have to develop the proprioceptors when you're training to get your muscles to absorb force. If they can't absorb force, then you're not going to be fast, you're not going to be explosive, and you're not going to be able to cut. Because what happens? When your muscles can't absorb force, they dissipate it. And when they dissipate it, you have a delay. So that's important when you're trying to cut. Imagine you go to slam that right foot into the ground and your leg and your foot and your ankle can't absorb force. What happens? It has a slight delay, downshift, and then you go. But if you want to be explosive and your muscles can absorb that force at a greater level, it's more quickly. Okay, so that's how that works. That's why you have to develop strength to a maximal level, and that's how you have to learn to transition that strength so your muscles can absorb that force and transition that into speed and explosiveness in your sprinting and agility. And so the two things that you're going to work on are slow eccentric pauses. Like I said, when you're doing your squats, your single leg squats, slow things down to about 6 to 8 seconds. Pause at the bottom from about 2 to 3 seconds, and then concentrically drive yourself up. Take about your 85% max of your 1 RM, and you can go a little bit lower to maybe about 75. But from there, make sure you really slow it down and work at your muscles to absorb the force. Your ankle, your foot muscles, your quads, your glutes, everything to absorb that force. That's what's most important. The second thing is called the cross-extensor reflex. The cross-extensor reflex, which I've done other videos on, and it's in my book, Instant Strength. I talk a lot about how proprioceptors, cross-extensor reflex are really important to be faster and more explosive. But the cross-extensor reflex is basically when you lift your right leg up and when you force it down into the floor, the left leg pops up. But the faster and more force you have when you put that right leg into the floor, the faster and more explosive that left leg, that left knee, that left leg will pop up. So, for example, it's like stepping on a tack. If your right foot steps on a tack, it's an immediate response to involuntary that your foot will drive up off the floor because of the pain. Now you can train this in a voluntary way. One is involuntary, this one's a voluntary way. And so the faster and harder you can slam that foot into the floor, which depends on how your muscles can absorb force and how much, then you can optimize and maximize that cross-extensor reflex, which is essential in sprinting and in agility. Because again, when you lift that right leg up and you slam that foot into the floor, that left leg and left knee pops up to go faster. So let me give you an example. All right, so the cross-extensor reflex is an involuntary reflex that you have, is that if you were to step on a tack on the floor, this leg would stiffen really hard and this leg would withdraw from the floor very quickly. So if I was to step on something, this stiffens very quickly so I can have that stability to come back to lift my knee off the floor from the pain response. So it would be like if I step, because as I'm stepping that weight's going here, so this leg has to stiffen. So it would be like boom, like that. So it steps, you step on something and stiffens and withdraws. We can train this reflex. So it's why Tyreek Hill is extremely fast, is because his cross-extensor reflex is very fast, and it is a way that you can improve with your sprinting speed and explosiveness. So what we're trying to do is use the stiffness, because remember, stiffness is about force absorption, not dissipation. This would be force dissipation when your foot withdraws from the floor, and this would be force absorption, that stiffness. So remember, muscle stiffness that you develop through strength training creates that force absorption. I'm going to show you a few methods on how to do that appropriately so you can improve your cross-extensor reflex and be fast like Tyreek Hill. But let me explain this a little bit further. So when you're sprinting, what are you doing? It's a cross-extensor reflex. So as this goes down and stiffens and hits the floor hard, this knee pops up. So the harder and faster this leg can absorb stiffness and into the ground, the faster the opposite knee will pop up. And so that is the cross-extensor reflex in opposition of being voluntary rather than involuntary with a pain threshold. And so when you step, so it has to boom, boom. So the faster this comes down, the faster the other knee comes up. And that's why it's important to have strength very equal in both legs, because if this can absorb more force and comes up fast, and this one can't, it's like going fifth gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, fourth gear. So you have to kind of have that force absorption and strength to be explosive, because you don't want one side to be more stronger than the other, because then that means one side will be more explosive than the other. And so what happens when you're sprinting? Cross-extensor reflex. What did I tell you? Put force into the ground, this knee pops up. Put force into the ground, this knee pops up. So but you've got to put mind to the muscle when you're training it. You got to make these neuromuscular connections in order to tap into that speed and explosiveness with the cross-extensor reflex. And now in order to get your muscles to absorb force instead of dissipate it, because most people are dissipating force, is that you want to do something called a slow eccentric squat. You can do it on the leg press or on the squat racks. And so when you do a slow eccentric squat, you want to do a slow eccentric squat for about 5 to 8 seconds, pause at the bottom for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then come up as fast as you want concentrically. And so what you're trying to do is you want to use about 85% to 75% of your 1 RM and work slow. Again, put mind to the muscle. You want to feel your muscles absorbing that force. And that's why you want to do it slow, because if you do it slow, you're going to activate a proprioceptor called muscle spindle. Most times muscle spindles are not so active in people, and GTOs are. GTOs are more about dissipating force, and muscle spindles are more about getting your muscle to absorb force. But sometimes you have to, flick the switch a little bit to get them activated. Now, you don't have to do slow eccentric training all the time, but the more you start to activate your muscle spindles to communicate and synchronize with the GTOs, the better, because they need to communicate together. But if the muscle spindles aren't active, GTOs will be overactive and they're going to dissipate a lot of force, and you're going to lose at least 20% of strength production that way. Because they're not going to take you to the point of like, okay, that's enough. It's going to stop it, like slowing down before the stop sign. You're going to start braking to come to a slow stop. That's what GTOs do. They start to slow you down before, not at the stop sign to brake, because then it's too late. You can get injured. So that's kind of how they work. Now you want to get those muscle spindles activated and absorbing force, and that'll teach the muscle to be stronger in absorption, not dissipation. And so basically, I'm just going to use the leg press because I can talk and I can have a little bit of freedom rather than using the squats. I use the squat racks, and sometimes I use the leg press for other work. But usually, my primary is a single leg squat on a squat rack. You can do two legs, but single legs, like I said, it's like the cross-extensor reflex. You don't want to downshift. You want this leg to be as strong as this leg because you don't want to shift up in 5, downshift in 4. 5, 4 as you're sprinting, So you want to kind of think about that you're shifting appropriately 5 and 5 and fifth gear, not 5 and 4, 5 and 3. It makes a huge difference and it'll affect your speed. So in order to get your muscles to absorb force, to have a better cross-extensor reflex, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, and then push. Push as fast as you want concentrically. 1, 2, 3. Feel the muscles absorbing that, okay? 5, hold, and then push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try to get that to come as close as you can. Don't have to be 5, can be 6 or 8, and then push. And so the idea is to get that knee to move slowly as far as it can. Don't go as far as you can, not as far as I can, but go as far as you feel comfortable. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds. Drive like you're trying to jump off the floor. This type of movement with slow eccentric and the pause will get your muscles to absorb force. Go for about 5 repetitions, 6 repetitions, see how it feels. And then afterwards, relax and just switch legs back and forth for now. I'm going to put this into a program for you, so make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you can see that program later on in the next weeks. I talk about this all in my book called Instant Strength. It's available on Amazon.com, and I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. The exercise I like to do is the knee drive up. And again, I like to work this in 2 different ways, an explosive way and a slow eccentric way. So we're going to do the slow eccentric way because, like I said, this is about teaching your muscles to absorb force. So we're going to get in position here and then just come on up. This would be the bottom part, not here. So it would be 1, 2, and then down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then down. Try to go as slow as you can. Hold at the top. Feel that stability, and then slow on the way back down. So again, you're going to do about 5 repetitions with a 5-second count, 2-second pause, and then just release it back. Be careful when you release it back in a concentric that it's not pulling your joint out, so be cautious of that. So this would be the second exercise that you can work with. It works well in pairing with the squat, leg press, and the knee drive, because it's actually training that mechanics to put force into the ground like a squat, and then to drive the knee back up. And so you're really working your legs to be like pistons with this type of exercises. That is like the shock method that was developed by a Russian scientist, but we're going to only do one part of that method first because you have to get your muscles to absorb force in order to get the plyometric response. And if your muscles aren't absorbing the force, like I said, what happens? It dissipates. And so when it dissipates that force, you're going to get that delay before the jump. And so if you can't absorb the force, you're not going to get the plyometric effect to jump high, be fast, or explosive. And so what will happen is as you hit the floor, it dissipates. And I'll explain that when I show you the shock method. But first, we're going to learn to absorb that force and then to respond and rebound afterwards. I'm going to show you the shock method routine. So shock method was invented by a Russian scientist named Verokonsky, and he came up with the approach that in order for your muscles to absorb elastically, they need to be forced. But in order to do the shock method appropriately, you have to have your muscles absorb force. And that's why doing a slow eccentric pause and the slow eccentrics in the way I'm showing you is going to make a huge difference in how your muscles absorb force to absorb shock method. And so a lot of people, their muscles can't absorb force, and what happens? They go to do the shock method and it just doesn't work for them. It doesn't feel right. But your muscles have to learn to absorb that force and not dissipate it. And so when you do the shock method, when you land, you have to land tight. You can't land and be wobbly, because that means if you're wobbly, that the force is dissipating. Think of it like jumping off a dock into the lake. You can jump off the dock, you can get a lot of force, speed, and explosiveness to jump into the water. But if you're in a canoe and you're going to jump into the lake off a canoe, it's all wobbly, so you're not going to jump nearly as far, as high, and as fast as you could from solid land, the dock. That is what you have to understand about shock absorption. And so when you hit that landing, it needs to be strong. And so when you hit that landing, your muscles will absorb that force. And so you have to teach it to do that. But if you're like this, it ain't going to work. So when you hit, put the steps as high as you feel that you can get force absorption. You can go up a little bit higher, but again, there's guys who jump up about high, waist high, or even higher than that, but you've got to have that force absorption. If you're not absorbing force, you're going to hurt yourself. Most people don't understand that force absorption starts from the bottom of your feet, through your ankle, knee, all the way up and all the way up through your spine. A lot of people get hurt because they try to, you know what, I'm going to do that force absorption, that shock method, and when they go to hit the floor, they hurt their ankle, they hurt their knee, because it's not strong enough. There's a weak link. By doing the slow eccentric pauses in this way with the squats, you're going to create, when you do it slow, you link everything together. All the coordinates, the joints, and the muscles are firing and working together when you do it slow. Do things fast, it's a fast forward approach of what you can do slow. So that's why it's important to do the absorption. And so with shock method here, what you do is just do a few that way. The way shock method is hit and jump. But again, if you can't absorb, you're not going to get a good jump. So start with the absorption first. Boom, 1. And do this about 5 times. 2, slam that foot into the floor. Feel everything working. 3. If you don't feel like you're getting the shock absorption, stop and just do the other exercises. And then after a few weeks, start with this method. But these are how you can be as fast as Tyreek Hill, is because he's able to absorb. He's able to create a lot of stiffness very quickly. When you can create stiffness in your muscles, that's absorbing force. And when you absorb force, you can create explosiveness. And you can be fast with your cross-extensor reflex and agility, because you can move and plant very quickly. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on Tyreek Hill speed and explosive training. Remember, if you want to be faster and more explosive, your muscles have to absorb the force. In the beginning, you're going to work with slow eccentric and isometric pauses, but you're not going to do this for the rest of your life or for forever. It's just to get that muscle spindle to be activated to absorb force. And the only way you can really do it is through slow eccentric training. And that's the secret of this power, and that's how you develop this speed and explosiveness. Again, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to share this video for someone who might like this type of information. Check out my book, Instant Strength. It's available on Amazon.com. Links in the description. Take care. Have a great day.